Hi everyone, Raphael Harry here, and you're listening to White Label American, a podcast where we hear stories from an immigrant or two, sometimes more. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show. Welcome to another episode of White Label American. Thank you all for joining us today. Before we begin, I would like to say thank you to my Patreons. Thank you for supporting us and helping us build community. And shout out to our newest patron who just joined this morning, Kevin. I always call him the Prof. He's someone who has always supported me and who believes that I can return back to my writing. I hope to do that one day. For those of you listening who at this time are not able to sign up on Patreon and join us, we understand. And you can still support us by sharing, liking, and subscribing to the podcast. And most importantly, giving us 5 stars and a positive review on iTunes, especially, and all the podcast platforms wherever you are listening on. So, today, I have a very, very special guest. Yes, all my guests are special, but this person is more special than others because she's family. And when I say family, I mean family, down to family. She's a cousin of mine. She's an entrepreneur. She's a woman of science. And she's great in yoga. I mean, she's so great in yoga that I wish I could have that dedication to yoga. But I just started finding myself in fitness recently, so I'm building up to yoga. But my wife and my daughter they do the yoga sometimes. So yeah, so I think it's already in the family. So we're getting there. We're getting there. I'll join in soon. But today's guest, she is one of the smartest women that I know, and she's an all-round awesome person. I just love the energy that she brings to the table. And she's proof that, my family always has fantastic people that, that I just love seeing all the time. So without much further ado, I welcome Tawanda Asamaowei. Welcome to the podcast. How you doing?
Thank you. That was such a sweet introduction.
Hey,
I'm doing well.
you're a sweet person and you deserve all the sweetness in your
Thank
intros.
you. I'm really
So,
excited to be here.
oh, thank you. We're excited to have you too. You know, so um, unlike most of the guests that we've had on the podcast, they're always born outside the country and then moving here. Your journey began like the opposite direction,
Yeah,
and so can you introduce us to where you were born and your childhood?
sure. So I have a lot of different identities that intersect all inside of me. So my mom is from Zimbabwe and she came to Massachusetts when she was 16 years old. And she went to school out here and went to college. And my dad, which is how we're related,
Yes.
is Nigerian. And he came out here, I believe, when he was 19, maybe 20. He was young.
Yeah.
And he came out here for school. Also, so they met at college. And so they subsequently fell in love, got married, and had little old me. So I was born in Worcester, Massachusetts as a result. I always like to give people this little tidbit. I am the only Tawanda Asamaowei in the world. There
Wow.
are a lot of Asamaoweis. As you know, we have a very
Yes.
big family. There are a lot of Asamaoweis, and there are tons of Tawandas. Tawanda is a Zimbabwean name traditionally given to the firstborn son or
Oh,
daughter or
okay.
child, firstborn child. So it's a gender neutral name. You can meet,
Oh,
yeah, you'll meet Tawandas of various genders if you are on that part of the world.
okay. Good to know.
But because it's a Zimbabwean first name and a Nigerian last name, I am the only Tawanda Asamaowei in the world. So
the only to wonder. Wow, that makes it. I knew you were extra special, man. You see, now that takes it to another level. So, do you know the meaning of Tawanda?
So it means kind of like we are whole. So it's kind of, a child is what makes a family. So
Yes.
it's like it means we're together or we are whole or, that type of thing. That's why it's usually given to the firstborn child.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. And what tribe in Zimbabwe is it from?
So Zimbabwe is different than Nigeria in that they're not really broken down into tribes. My mom's from
Okay.
Harare. She speaks Shona.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're not. She doesn't really have a tribe in that, like I would
Okay.
say, oh, we are Ija. We are,
Yeah.
of the Ija people. That's not kind of how it goes down with her.
Okay. Yeah, I thought they would have something similar to like South Africa with the Zulus or Xhosa
Yeah,
and
not
the
that I
others.
know of, or
Okay.
that has ever been shared to me.
All right. All right. That's fine. But you also have an Ijo name too, right? I,
I
I,
do.
I forgot it, but I used to remember that.
It's Adessia Bara. So my dad is a Adeseye. I'm a Adessia Bara.
Oh, it's yeah,
I'm
about
probably butchering this. Am I
yeah.
saying it right?
I haven't heard that name in a long time, so I'm butchering it too because I'm like yeah, but yeah, it's a beautiful name. It's a name that I haven't heard in a long, long time. So because I think my mom used to either mostly call you guys when she used to tell me about you guys at first it was by your Ijo names, and then
Mm,
she switched to your Zimbabwean names later on, and
yeah.
I had to make that mental switch in my head too. But yeah,
Yeah,
so
because my sister has a Zimbabwean name too. Her name's
yeah,
Tinashe.
Tinashe.
So
Yeah, but I think Tinashe is a lot more common over here.
now it is because
Yeah,
they have that celebrity, the singer Tinashe.
hmm because I don't think people realize how that name is Zimbabwean.
Hmm.
Because at first when I heard it, I was like, is that Zimbabwean? And then I started seeing other people with the name. I was like, well, it might be an American name.
Well, people always think me and Tinashe have American names. They're like, oh, it's like because there's a lot of Tawanas,
Yeah,
without the
yeah, yeah.
but people always think it's an American name. But no, they're both Zimbabwean names. Zendaya, the actress, that's a
Yeah.
Zimbabwean name.
Oh, wow.
Hmm.
But she doesn't have roots to Zimbabwe.
No, her dad is Zimbabwean.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Okay. I'm learning a lot about Zimbabwe. Yeah. Wow. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So let me see. So you were born in Massachusetts, and
Yes.
by the time will meet, which was long. Well, we met first time we met was in Port Harcourt, and then
Mhm.
what I consider the official meeting was in Maryland, which I always associate with you guys.
Yeah.
So,
So it's funny because we were almost New Yorkers
oh,
when I was younger, and my parents were younger. My dad wanted to move to New York from Massachusetts. And so he went out there, visited one of his friends or a cousin. I can't remember the story quite right. But he goes out there. He's like, oh, I got this young family. I'm going to come out to New York, make some money. So he comes out here. He goes into like a gas station or something. He comes out, his car is completely robbed. Like they took all of his things. So he got the New York special. This is like deep in the 80s, I
yeah.
think. And so, that's when New York was New York. And so he gets robbed and he's crying and he's so upset. And he calls on the payphone, another one of his friends, and he's like, listen, man, don't stay there. Come visit me in DC. Like, I'll help you get back home, so you'll have some money and you can get back to Massachusetts.
Yeah.
So he ends up driving to DC from New York and he goes through Maryland. And he's like, and this is before Maryland was, developed and suburban. It was kind of country.
Hmm.
And he's like, this is kind of nice. I can move my family here. And so that's how we became Marylanders instead of New Yorkers. Because my dad got robbed.
I have someone who's like a big brother to myself, and he's a longtime family friend, and he was also born here. I think yeah, he was born in Brooklyn, and then just like Kenneth moved to Nigeria, so he grew up there, and that's how himself and Kenneth became friends. And He was telling me now he lives in Seattle. And he was telling me that when he returned back to the states, he tried to move. His first port of call was New York because he's like, "Well, I'm back home." And one day on the streets, somebody walked up to him and was like, "Hey, bro," and he was like, "Oh, hey, brother," and the person like, "I got something for you," and he's like, "Oh, what do you got?" And the person was like, pulled a gun on him and robbed him, and he was like, "Oh man," he's like, "That's it. I'm not staying on the East Coast anymore." That was the experience, and now he's in Seattle. I was like, "Really? That's how you moved to Seattle?" I was like, "I thought this was like late '90s." It was like, "Yeah, I'm not staying there." It's like, okay, I overreacted, but that's how I ended up on the West Coast. I was like, you went
Listen, New York
extreme.
is scary.
He went extreme. He just like, I'm going way across, like, get me as far as possible. Just, 'cause- I was like, wow, okay. So you ended up in Maryland, and but you started in Massachusetts. So this next question: where does your favorite childhood memory come from?
Oh, for sure, it comes from Maryland.
Okay.
I love Maryland. I think it's a great place to have grown up. It is, and I grew up in a community that's always on one of the most diverse lists. And so, like, if there's a top 10, my neighborhood and surrounding, towns are
Uh,
always on that
what
list.
neighborhood is that?
So I'm from Gaithersburg, Maryland.
Okay.
It's incredibly diverse, is not just racially and ethically, but it's diverse with religions. It is diverse socioeconomically.
Yeah.
The town I grew up in was built by someone by the Kettler brothers. They were developers, and they kind of had a vision of, I guess, inclusivity. So they
Oh.
wanted, no matter what your socioeconomic background or like, your race or wherever you came from, that you had access to the same things. And so, they built the town with like the apartments in the center and then the townhouses and then, the regular single family homes and then the big houses, kind
Oh.
of on the outside. But what that meant
Interesting.
is that everybody had the same grocery store,
Yeah.
everybody had the same bank. Everybody went to the same schools. So, in my high school, it'd be normal to see kids who were walkers or who were taking the city bus.
Yeah.
And it'd also be normal to see kids who had a Benz at like, 16, because it just was a really diverse place to grow up.
Hmm.
So I love Maryland for that reason. But, the reason why I had so many happy childhood memories is that, like I said, my dad is a Nigerian immigrant, but he very much kept us attached to home, to Nigeria. And so my cousins would always come out. You would always come out, your brother would always come out. We'd have like big Sunday dinners, or people would spend the summers with us. And, we would just take like random road trips. And so I always just had a really good time and felt really connected to my cousins and as a result, Nigeria.
Yeah. So you have one particular memory that you like to share
Hmm. I don't
among
know.
your
I was always
favorites?
getting into hijinks as a kid. I'll say my favorite was my first cousins all came from Nigeria for the summer. And my dad basically took us on a road trip through the Northeast. So we drove up to New York and through New Jersey, and then we came back and we went to Virginia Beach. Then we went to North Carolina for Myrtle Beach. Then we came
Wow.
to Atlanta and saw my Atlanta cousins. And so it was just this epic long, I don't even know how many weeks. I don't even know how many weeks we were out there, but it was just this epic long vacation. Imagine how many kids at the time? Six kids, all cousins,
Wow.
and we're just going to different beaches, different cities, going to museums, just having a really, really good time. So I guess that's probably one of my favorite
That's
childhood.
some wild fun right there. But I think that explains why you're about travel and
I love to travel. Yeah,
experiencing new things and places. So yeah, because
yeah,
it's been a part of you for a long
yeah. I
time.
grew up very middle class, but because, my parents are immigrants, I had the benefit of traveling outside of the country at a very young age.
Hmm.
And I think that shaped, what I enjoy now as an adult because I love to travel, to different countries, different places, experience different foods,
Yeah,
all of that.
yeah. So, was there um, any struggle with trying to identify with one side over the other, Nigerian over Zimbabwean per se?
No, because like I said, because I grew up in such a diverse community, so I have cousins in other parts of America who
Hmm.
are first gen Americans, and they have, I guess, that conflict you're talking about identity, about like, oh, am I Black American or am I Nigerian American, or, kind of where they see their place in this country. Um, and honestly, that was never an issue for me because I mean, it was just so diverse. So I knew Persian Americans or Afghanistan Americans, and I knew, Iranian Americans, and I knew Jewish Americans. There's so many different kinds of people. And because of that, I never felt othered for having
Mm.
African immigrant parents.
Yeah,
So you would go to, you invite somebody over for dinner. You go to maybe an American household, they're gonna have I don't what do Americans eat for dinner? Like macaroni and cheese,
hmm,
some chicken, some green beans, which is delicious. Don't get me wrong. I
yeah,
love all those things. And but if you come to my house, that's not what you're going to. If you come to my house for dinner, that's not what you're going to have. You're going to have rice and stew,
yeah.
or maybe fufu. So it's like even with those differences in childhood, I never felt othered because I just knew so many ethnically diverse people. And so it was more like culture sharing. Like,
Mm.
yeah, my parents are African and I'm also, of African descent. And so, but I'm also Black American and very much an American and clearly Black. I mean,
Yeah.
your listeners can't see me, but I am clearly Black. And so, there wasn't really this whole dynamic of choose. Now, with that being said, I do think my parents weaponized my Americanness against me. Anytime you talk back or talk up, it's like you're acting very American. What do? You don't talk. If I send you to Nigeria, you don't talk like that. You know. Uh,
Ah,
so, in that regard, I sometimes felt distinctly American, whereas maybe if you're Black American and your entire family and lineage is from here,
yeah.
you might not feel that same tension.
Mm.
But yeah, I never really, I guess, had identity problems in that regard.
Yeah, that's a big point that you raised, though. The African parents weaponizing the when the kid voices an opinion, and they're like, "Oh, you're American. You're talking back, because you're
Yeah.
American, doing that." And I know a few who like take it to the extreme, and I say extreme because that's how I met, because did most of my schooling up to secondary school or high school in Nigeria, and you got to meet kids whose parents brought them from the States, from the UK and Europe, and dropped them in Nigeria because the word on the streets was that, oh, this kid was behaving too American or too European, and they needed to be taught Nigerian manners. They don't have respect, so we need to bring them here. The family, like the rest of the family, but send them down here. We know put them. We'll find a good school, but they will learn. They will learn, and then that's how they ended up sending them. And then some got lucky, but some got scarred for life. And what's his name? The musician Seal. There's a story that he's also one of those, and that's the reason why he doesn't fuck with Nigeria anymore.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
that
bad.
yeah, that's because when parents do that, they take the kid's passport, and so you're literally a prisoner. And but they don't think about that. They don't see it that way, but it's like a whole the emotional heart is deep,
Yeah, it's
and
traumatic. Yeah.
yeah, it's very traumatic, and it's something that a lot of parents do not resolve over their lifetime. And I think BBC Africa had a series on that not long ago, and they had a mother who did that to her child from a mother, a Nigerian mother in the UK, who did that to her daughter. And the daughter today is an entrepreneur. She has, by the Nigerian standards, she's successful because she has a big business. And she was with her mom, and mom was like, "You see, if I didn't do it to my daughter, will she own her business today? It worked." And
Yeah.
daughter was like, so they were asking the daughter, "What was your experience like?" And she was trying to be modest because the mom was sitting down next to her, but she was like, "It was traumatic. I
Mhm.
never lived somewhere where I was in a school where they made me go fetch water from a well. And I didn't like the food. I wasn't used to this type of food. My mother didn't feed me with food like this. And the teachers were beating me. The principal was beating me. So, but nobody would listen to me when I complained. So, but she was like, well, I thank God everything, I'm here today. And then she just like cut it there. So, there was more, but she just
Yeah.
cut it there because it's like she was reopening the traumatic wounds. And the mom was like, "Well, you see, if I didn't do it, well, because she needed to be toughen up. She needed to toughen up, And I was like, "Wow, yeah, there's something." Because to me, this stuff like that is just going to blow up one day. There's one day it's just going to the wounds will just reopen, and then so it's something that I wish parents would recognize. And
Yeah.
sometimes I talk to fellow African immigrants who are parents and like myself, and they start bringing that up, and I'm like, that's not where you should be going, because just because we were told we were pushed on this line, it's not right. But so yeah, but I love that you mentioned that, and it's not right to weaponize the Americanness, because no matter what, my daughter is American. I can't say
Mhm.
she's not American. She's American, but at the same time, she's Nigerian. She's German also, and it's
Mhm.
part of who she is. I'm not going to take that away from her.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah. So, as part of growing up in a diverse community in Maryland, Gettysburg, you got to travel a lot within America, but you also got to travel outside of America, right?
Yes.
And where was the first place that you traveled to that made an impression on you?
For sure, Nigeria. I mean, it was a culture shock. And it was a culture shock, I guess, in both ways. So I was pretty young. I think I was maybe 11 or 12 the first time I went to Nigeria. Um, and I guess it was the first time I saw such an imbalance in, I guess, wealth.
Mm.
So like I mentioned, in Maryland, I grew up pretty middle class. My dad was a provider and a breadwinner, and we were comfortable. Not rich, not poor, just regular. And you see a lot of propaganda about Africa on Western media, and so I didn't know what I thought was going to go on when I went to Nigeria. I was like, oh, are there going to be toilets? Like, do I need to bring, I don't know. Like, I just didn't know. I thought I was going to the bush.
Yeah.
And so, and so I get there, and my uncle is very successful. And so that's who we were with when I went to Nigeria. And it was not the bush. It was very luxurious
Hmm.
and very impressive. And probably, like, I remember the first time I went to Abuja, it had been the nicest hotel I had ever stayed in my life. Like, it was beautiful. Everything,
That's true. The first time I went to Abuja was the same thing. Nicest hotel
everything
I've
was
ever stayed in my
gorgeous
life.
and new and shiny. And so I very much had that kind of bubble. But when we would go on road trips to, OD or whatever the case may be, or even getting into the airport, because, getting into the Nigerian airport is it's a whole mission.
Yep.
So, um, you'd see kind of, or what it was. It was the first time I went to the market because
Oh,
we
that's
never
it.
had to go grocery store shopping. We never had
Yeah,
to go
that's the
grocery store
experience.
shopping. My uncle had people to help him do these types of things. So it's like I never really had to venture outside of his compound. And so, if I had spent my entire summer there, I would have just thought like, yes, everybody in Nigeria lives in a beautiful mansion with, people to help.
Hmm.
And then, we went to the market because we were so interested to see how it goes. And that's when I saw true poverty. And I was like, how can this exist in the same space that this kind of obscene wealth exist?
Yeah.
And so, and America has it too, right? Like, I'm not trying to say that America doesn't have the working poor or the lower class, but in Nigeria, the middle class is so small.
It's literally disappearing now. It's
It's
or disappeared
disappearing. Yeah, you're
or gone
either
even.
very wealthy or
Hmm.
you're very, very poor. And so being confronted with that was a culture shock. I was like, why are there children begging, or why are there, people without limbs, in the streets, and they're begging and they chase, and it's like you want to give them money, but then, your driver or your uncle's like, don't give them money because then they'll follow you home. And it's this whole it's a very surprising and shocking thing, especially when you're young.
Yeah.
And so I'm probably I probably had the most it was probably the trip that had the most impact on me
Mm.
that I've ever taken.
Yeah. 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 I can understand how that's um, a big culture shock because when you grow up with it, you don't really see it as a big deal, and it's kind of like when I arrived here and Kenneth took me to DC, and the first guy comes up to me like, "Hey, brother, can I get $1?" And I'm like, "Oh, sorry, I don't know you. I'm trying to explain myself. I don't have $1." And I didn't understand that I was a homeless person begging me because I just look at him like, well, he got clothes on, and because
Yeah.
I was barely a week in America, and I'm activate my mind is going back to what a homeless person in Nigeria looks like,
Mhm.
what I was expecting to see. So it didn't match. So I was like, oh yeah, I'm having a chat and I'm explaining, and like, Kenneth had gone. Then he looks back and doesn't see me. I was like, hey, what are you doing? You know the person? I was like, oh no, he needs $1, and I'm explaining to him. It's like, how many of them are you going to explain to today? I was like, well, what do you mean? He's like, you know how many homeless people are here? And I was like, what? Homeless? You mean in the capital of America, there's homeless people? And that was like the beginning of my culture shock, you
Yeah.
know. And but I've said it before on the podcast. I never realized that to me, it felt like there were more homeless people in America than in Nigeria. But actually, I take that back because there are actually more in Nigeria. But it's just the way we looked at it because I had gotten used to it. I guess I acclimatized to seeing them. So it didn't matter to me because I was one station above them, even though I was close to being homeless at one certain points in my life. So I guess it just became normal to me. And they don't really come up to you like the American way and beg because some of them have jobs and and so, but people are still homeless, but we don't see it that way. So you're like, yeah, they're fine. There's not a problem. There's nothing going on there. There's they're not, their problem is not mine. So I didn't have to take that into consideration. So you don't see, they don't exist. They're invincible. They became invincible to me, you know.
Mhm.
And I just went about my business like, yeah. So, but it has to take others telling me or pointing it out to me, then I'm like, oh wow, I was actually blind to something like that in existence being around me, and I was actually walking past them almost all the time, and I'm like, oh, so yeah, there were homeless people. There were people who were like when the markets close, um, that's where they sleep. When all the traders are gone and they take over their tables and all that, and they sleep there. But the other difference, like they make it nice, before the trader comes back the next day. Otherwise, they'll have to hire security to chase them, at nighttime. So there are different dynamics to it, but it was something that I was just blind to being over there and growing up there because I wasn't really affected by it,
Mhm.
and like the people begging on the streets, we see them, and I guess a way of countering that was that we developed they're not all uh, It's not that bad for them if you can make it to the roads. You can beat traffic. You can be weaving through traffic, and but they needed help. There were people who shouldn't be in that situation, but some of us just came up with that mentality. Like, look how fast they can move. Like, so it must not be that bad for them. And then somebody will see one person who, it's like the Fox News thing where you go focus on one beggar who, after begging, you follow that person and realize that person has a car. What? That person has a car? I don't even have a car. That person has a car. So all beggars are fake. They're all fake. And we just focus on one and use that as an example of bashing all of them. But yeah, the poverty was high. It was high. And I was living in a face me face you apartment for some time, and I experienced it. And when you ask me, I was like, hell no, hell no, hell no. I was a bubble. I was a shining bubble. Like, man, I was dressing good and all that. Whoever admits that they lived in poverty? Nobody. So you be like, I was like, yeah, I was middle class, man. I wasn't middle class, man. I was poor. Just ask the girls who were like, oh, if you want to take me out, buy me shawarma. You won't see me again. I'm gone because I couldn't afford shawarma. So that was a disqualifier. So yeah, it's why I always understand and I appreciate when people notice that, and the culture shock. It's something that I'm able to relate to now and see how that fence that I created as a way of shielding myself, I guess. And some of us just do that to shield ourselves mentally and say we don't want to picture ourselves in that realm of being poor or consider ourselves as poor, because that's the language we use there. Like, if you say you're poor, you're poor. But if you say you're rich, you're rich. Then the statistics start to look like, oh, they're not poor people there. I mean, a lot of us are poor. A lot of us were poor, and yeah, we just need that help. But we need others to come point it out to us, like, yeah, we've never seen something like this before in our lives. And that's why a lot of Nigerians were surprised when that statistic came out. Was it about 3 years ago, that Nigeria per capita has the largest number of poorest people in the world.
Hmm.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised that we overtook India. Well, I wasn't surprised because
Yeah.
because for too long we've been hiding it. We've been hiding
Hmm.
it, and we've been denying that something like this exists. But it's just the truth. It's unfortunate, but it's the truth. You
Hmm.
know. So
It's sad because we're the richest African nation on the continent, but
mhm. It's
still
just
with
in a
the
few
largest
people's.
poverty rate.
Yeah, it's in a small circle. All the wealth is situated in just a tiny little circle. And if you want further proof that trickle down does not work, you look at Nigeria, because Nigeria is another country that practices trickle down economics.
Mhm.
They preach by it, they stand by it, and yeah, it's it doesn't work. But before we go further, we shall take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more on Tawanda's journey. So, welcome back. And now we've touched on Nigeria, but you've also been to Southern Africa.
I have, yes.
What was that experience like? And but you
I
didn't go to
loved
Zimbabwe
it.
though.
So I went to Zimbabwe when I was a baby. So, my mom, she had went to America, went to school, got
Yeah,
married, and she did that all without her family. Her family was still in Zimbabwe at the time.
uh,
My parents didn't have a wedding. They went to Justice of the Peace
yeah.
because they were immigrants. None of their people were here. And so when she had me, she was like, okay, I'm going to go back home. And so it's just me and a little baby passport picture. And I went to go meet all of my maternal extended family. So I don't have a ton of memories of it because I was only one. but
Ah,
um but it is my goal to go back, even though my younger sister has been back a few times. And she said it's kind of hard because, they had that very deep
oh
recession.
yes, yeah.
So,
It's
it would be hard to come by. Like, from my understanding, if you wanted to go to Zimbabwe, you got to stop in South Africa first,
mm-hmm.
load up your car with resources because things like butter and sugar and tea are hard to come by,
Wow.
or if you get them, they're very, very expensive because of inflation. I don't
Oh,
even think they use the Zim dollar anymore. I think
yeah,
they
yeah.
use
They don't. It's
USD.
US dollars much. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is USD.
So I haven't been to Zimbabwe in a while because, like I said, every time I've tried to go as an adult, they're like, maybe not yet. But a lot of my mother's family has migrated to South Africa. And so I have gone there to visit with them. And I love South Africa. I've been to Joburg and Cape Town. I love Cape Town more. South Africa hasn't treated me that great. I got robbed my first
Oh.
time I went there. I mean, and they robbed us blind. I mean, took all
Well,
of our
was
cash.
that in Joburg or Cape Town?
That was in Joburg
Okay.
on it was Easter Sunday morning, broad daylight, robbed. We were on our way to the airport, and there was a cop in the median, or what looked like a cop. But to this day, I still don't know if it was a real cop.
Oh wow.
But he's flagging us down. Like, I'm
Yeah.
telling my cousin who's driving, like, oh, I think he's trying to flag us down because I'm American. So
Mm-hmm.
when the
Yeah.
cop flags you down, you pull over because that's the law. Apparently, that's not what you do in Joburg. But she pulled over, and he comes up to the driver's side and he takes the key out of the ignition.
Ah, that,
And that's when
that's Nigerian police style too.
I was like, okay. So my cousin's like, hi, officer, why did you pull me over? And he was like, where are you going that you were speeding like that? And she was like, oh, well, we're going to the airport. And it's four of us. It's me, my mom, my sister, and my cousin, four women. We have our suitcases in the back. My cousin's driving, her father's Benz.
Yeah.
So we just look like marks.
Ah.
So his little partner came around. His partner wasn't in a cop uniform or anything. He just looked disgusting. And he comes to the passenger side. They told us to put all of our phones on the dashboard, emptied out our purses. And my uncle, since we were traveling, my uncle had just given us a lot of cash. Like, they took like $3,000 from me.
Nice.
Yeah, I was so upset. Because I was like, that's the lesson. Because when my uncle gave it to me, he was like, oh, go shopping, go buy yourself something nice. And I was like,
Yeah.
what? I'm taking this 3,000. Like I said, I've always grown up middle class. I was like, I'm taking this $3,000 home. I got student loans. Like, I'm gonna put this in my savings account.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want to spend it, but I should have spent it because they stole it. And so
Hey. It
they robbed
happens.
my mom of her camera, my
Oh no.
iPad, just everything, everything, everything. And they said, okay, we're going to get back in the car. We'll throw the keys out the window. Don't even think about moving until we've driven off. And so they threw the keys out the window. They drove off. My cousin had to like jog down the highway to go get the keys.
Wow.
And since we didn't have any phones, we couldn't call the real police.
Yeah.
So we get to the airport. We're like, we've been robbed. And Joburg is they have a lot of crime. So they were like, well, okay, sorry. Are you going to get on the flight or? So I just had to nobody cared. I just had to get on the plane and go home.
Well, at least they didn't take your passport though.
No.
Okay.
Well, that's the first thing. When I very first started traveling when I was young, my dad said, never give someone your passport.
Yeah.
Because they did try to take it. They said, oh, we want to see ID. And so I flashed my passport open. At first I didn't flash anything. So I was like, I'm not driving. You don't need to see my ID. Because I had a very American thought of what a traffic stop is supposed to be like. Like, no, let me see your ID. So I flashed my passport and he tries to grab it from the window and I held on to it for dear life. And I was like, just look at it. Because my dad always drilled that in my head. Yeah. Never give up your passport.
I agree. That's everyone listening. Yep. Never give up your passport anywhere you go. Because there's some passports that are like gold. They're gold and yep. I can't tell you how many times I had stories back in Nigeria those days. Like, someone American or British passport, gone. And there's a part of Lagos, I'm not going to say the name of that area, but yeah, that's where the passport turns up at. And yeah, that place still exists, funny enough. But yeah. But I'm glad you came out of that journey, that experience.
Yeah, but I still love South Africa, even though
I have to go there. It's on my list. I have some podcasts that I was on a South African podcast. It's one of my favorite recently, and most of the guys are in Cape Town. I mean, and I have a friend there too, a good friend there, and it's a place that's been on my to visit list. I couldn't go for the World Cup in 2010 because I didn't plan it properly. So the Navy, I couldn't get leave out of the Navy then. So it's like one thing I still regret missing out on. But yeah, South Africa is, I plan to go. I think I know enough about the robberies. Not like I'm gonna go out there and be like, yeah, I can outsmart anybody. Nah, I'm just gonna go hang out where I feel.
I mean,
I'm just gonna find a local and hang out with. That's it.
Yeah, I think the main thing is just not to underestimate anybody because that's what I did. Because people told me, oh, Johannesburg has a lot of crime. It's you got to be careful. It's dangerous. And I was like, please, I've been to Niger. Nothing. What can touch me in Johannesburg?
Yeah.
Lots of things. It's because like I said, my uncle is very privileged and fortunate, and so when I would go to Nigeria, I wouldn't even experience things like that. So I couldn't compare because he travels with Mopo and all of that. Yeah. So it was a completely different thing.
It is. Hey, don't trust me. I understand. So, you've been to Nigeria, you've been in South Africa, and you got to hang out with family on both sides. And also in the States, you get to be around family from all the different parts of Africa. When it comes to food, where's your loyalty?
Oh, Nigerian food through and through.
Well, you're just gonna break Zimbabwean hearts like that.
Listen, Zimbabweans have good food, and so the thing is funny because my mom was married to my dad for so long. Whenever she cooks for her family, it's too spicy for them. They can't handle it. Because West Africans, we like heat.
Yep.
Whereas, the Southern Africans, they season their food, but they don't have the same heat
it's not as spicy as.
Yeah. So, I have cousins that can't even handle jollof rice. And I'm like, are you joking? This is for children. So I love West African food. I'm going to go see one of my aunties today, and I plan on raiding her deep freezer and taking all of her soup. She made me banga soup last week.
Nice.
So good. No, Nigerian food is my favorite, followed by Indian food. Then after that, I'll say like Mediterranean, Persian food, that kind of Middle Eastern type food. And then Mexican food. And then the fifth place will be tied between Japanese and Italian.
I think other than Japanese, the rest of the foods you called are literally they're almost like West African foods.
No, yes. I mean,
They're,
here's the thing about being part of the diaspora, the Black diaspora. If you are Afro-Latina,
yeah.
if you are African, if you are Afro-Caribbean, or even Indians who may not have the same, I guess, lineage, but they're about their heat and the spice, all of our foods are very similar.
Very.
Like Indians have
We have Indians, African Indians too. So
yeah.
I would, because there was someone who I was talking to, and I didn't realize that if you look at foods from like Eastern Africa, a whole lot of the Indian foods have intertwined with with the indigenous foods there over the years. So a lot of the foods are actually by Indian names or Arabic names, and you might think it's an indigenous food, but it's actually food from outside that came with those people in there. And
well, that's what. So the first place I ever had shawarma was in Nigeria.
Oh yes, me too.
We were coming from the club. Somebody ordered me shawarma, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is delicious."
It's different.
And so I come to America and I order shawarma at an Indian spot. Completely different thing.
Completely different. Trust me. When I was in Bahrain, I was like, "Yes, I'm finally in the Middle East. These are the people who got shawarma. It's their food." And there's a place called Shawarma Express. Yeah, that was I saw the sign. I was like, Shawarma Express. I got dollars in my pocket. Nobody can talk to me now. I walk in there, hook me up with your best shawarma. And they bring. I was like, what is this? This is burrito. They're like, you want a shawarma bowl? I was like, what's a shawarma bowl? I don't even know. Like, I was like, when I was in Nigeria, they're looking at me like I'm speaking a different language. And I'm like, but. You know what? I don't know what shawarma the people in Nigeria been eating all this time, but the Arabs here don't know what.
I'm wondering. I'm like, what are we eating in Nigeria and calling it shawarma?
It's the Lebanese I blame, because the Lebanese who came to Nigeria, it's like they made the shawarma different. There's a guy of Lebanese heritage that I'm about to interview soon. I'm going to put it to him like, you're going to take this blame for the Lebanese. You're going to stand trial. What you guys do to your shawarma that makes it different from every other person's shawarma? Because, yeah, even in Fairfax, I went to a place and with my brother, and I asked about their shawarma there. I think it's a Turkish place, and they brought a shawarma, and he was like, "This is not shawarma." I said, "Oh, here we go." Yeah. Every Nigerian is like, "This is not shawarma."
What
you guys don't know what shawarma is?
Are we just seasoning it differently, or
I think the seasoning is that like they add yogurt or they add most, but it's like it looks a lot more creamier. And it's I don't know. It's like it's a lot more extra.
Well, yeah, ours is saucy. I feel like when you get shawarma in an Indian restaurant in America, it's just like shaved meat, right?
Yes.
Whereas our own, you order shawarma in Nigeria, it's got like kind of sauce and it's spicy and it's kind of marinated. It's nice.
It's a whole different level. It's like if you're used to only eating shawarma in Nigeria and you come outside, that's gonna be one huge culture shock for you. You're gonna be like, nope, this is not how they make shawarma. I'll come teach you. I know someone who lives in Dubai right now. That's his complaint. Like, they don't know how to make shawarma here. I'm like, please don't tell them that. Please don't. Tell them in your country that they don't know how to make shawarma. It's not. I have news for you. Shawarma was not invented by Nigerians. Let me just let you know that. But he's like, what? I can't believe I'm here and they serve me shawarma. I paid all that money and the shawarma don't look good. I'm like, oh God, here we go. Yeah, don't disappoint Nigerians with the food. It's like
hilarious.
So, what about music when it comes to music?
Oh, Afro beats. Love Afro beats. But I'm an R&B girl. I love hip hop. I love R&B. I love Afro beats. I mean, I have a lot of eclectic taste. My boyfriend, I'm in an interracial relationship, so he's introduced me to a lot of different music. So, I listen to a lot of things.
So that's another thing we have in common too. Also, interracial relationships. Um, let's say 3 or 4 artists that can keep you dancing for an hour.
Ooh, okay. I'm gonna say Davido.
Oh, yep.
I'm gonna say Beyonce.
I would have been shocked if that name had not come up.
I'm gonna say dancing for an hour. Maybe Missy Elliott.
Mm,
And I don't know. It's hard. Rihanna.
that's not bad. It's not
Yeah.
bad. That's good list. Well, have you ever messed with Zimbabwean music or artists from
No,
there?
not really. I mean, the Zimbabwean culture wasn't a huge part of my life growing up because, my mom she was kind of separated from her
Oh
family.
yeah.
And I don't know Shauna and I don't know Ija because my parents don't speak the same language. So it's not like they're speaking it to each other
Yes.
where I can learn it. So, yeah, I don't have a huge connection to Zimbabwean culture like I do Nigerian culture because and that's just kind of even the nature of Nigerian culture. Nigerian, we are very, you know, exuberant and extravagant people. And so it,
True.
it pulls you in.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what happened to my mom. She just basically adopted. So when she cooked, she would cook Nigerian style. When we would go to Nigerian parties, we would go to, West African churches. It was very much, we were very much indoctrinated with that kind of culture versus the Zimbabwean culture because she just
Mm,
wasn't with her family.
yeah. And in Nigeria, we always have the numbers too. So
Hmm.
it's, we put that numbers to use. But excuse me, with the advancement of technology and streaming, you know, like I've been adding music from everywhere onto my playlist. So um, somebody put me on to Busi Ziwa.
Hmm.
I think she's South African, and she was on My Power, My Power song with
Yeah.
Beyonce. And whoa, that lady, she can, yeah, she's on my list of my top 4 artists that can keep me dancing for an hour. Always changes, maybe by the every quarter. But right now, she's on my top 4. Yeah, she's.
Nice.
But
The first
I
time
probably have to
I
look for a Zimbabwean. Yeah.
the first time I went to Africa, I met Hugh Masekela. Are you
Ooh,
familiar?
that
Yeah.
is that's one of Africa's greatest.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
that was a huge honor. We had dinner at his house. And
nice.
my uncle didn't tell us where we were going. He was like, we're going to my friend's house to have dinner. So
Wow,
me and my cousin, we get there, we're like, oh my God.
wow. What was that like?
That was pretty amazing. He's a very nice man. His house was beautiful. He's very cultured. So
Man, that's yeah. I probably would have fanboyed there. If I don't
yeah,
know.
I had to remember how to act. I was like, yeah. That was another reason I was so mad. Those robbers stole my phone because I had all these pictures with
Ah,
Hugh Masekela. I'm like,
man.
I didn't even get a chance to put these on social media.
Yeah. Dang it. Yeah, we. Oh man, I need to call my South African contact. Like, hey, put it out there. Like, tell it. Like, if somebody has a phone somewhere with some pictures. Let those pictures out. That's what we ask for. Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. Have you met any other celebrity in Nigeria or South Africa?
No, I don't think so. Or if I have, I wasn't aware.
They just sprung the surprise on you. So
Yeah.
yeah, but Hugh Masekela, wow, that's he's among people who I would have loved to
Mhm.
meet. At least have that one handshake with, like, yeah, it's those guys. Their music is just woo. It's up there. It's up there with all the legends in the world, man. I mean, they're so great. So, stepping away from music, you are also a woman of science. You're a woman who's followed her career and has followed her passion in defining her career path. How did you come about what you wanted to do and defining where you wanted to be?
Sure. So I am a public health advisor. For those who don't know, I work at the CDC, and I didn't always know what I wanted to do. I think when you're growing up in an immigrant household, doctor, lawyer, engineer, those are the
Yeah.
acceptable.
It's among the big five.
Those are the acceptable professions you can choose from. Maybe you can become an accountant, maybe.
Yeah, accountant is included.
So yeah, when I was growing up, I always said I was going to be a lawyer. I knew I didn't want to do that. Then I said I was going to be a doctor. Fine. So I get to college. I didn't have any discipline. And it was my first time away from home. My grades were terrible. And I had a student aide sit me down and say, so you are not going to be able to get into med school, behaving like this. So I was like, okay, I'll be a nurse. And so I was taking nursing courses, and I got all the way up to, I guess, the 300 courses. And I had a part-time job as a nurse's aide at a pediatrics office. And I was just like, I don't like any of this. I don't want to do this kind of work. And so one of the doctors at the practice was like, you're really kind of business minded. You're really good with systems and processes and programs. And so he put me in charge of 2 projects the office was doing. They were converting all of their medical records to electronic medical charts. And they were also running their flu clinic. And he was like, you'll be in charge of that. You don't have to see patients anymore. And so when I was doing that, I was like, okay, this is, I still want to work in health.
Yeah.
I'm still very kind of committed to that, especially because I've had my own health issues. And it was the nurses and stuff that really kind of helped me through that experience. But I can't be a nurse. Like, I'm just not. It's funny you call me a person of science, because I do not think I am that person. Science is not my strong suit. It's, it's hard. It was hard for me to grasp and learn and study. And so that's when I was like, oh, I will get into healthcare management. And I went to get my master's degree in healthcare management and administration, and I applied for a fellowship with the CDC, and it was a public health fellowship for STD prevention. So I was a sexual health educator, and I loved that. And so that's kind of what cemented my career in public health. And so after the fellowship, I moved to Atlanta and started working at the CDC headquarters. And so most of my experience is in STD prevention, but right now I'm doing drug overdose prevention, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah. Well, when I say you're a person of science, you still are. You still are, because I don't think it's only limited to the actual scientist. But I've seen you defending the science on your
Oh yes, I
social
definitely
media.
believe in science.
And
Yeah, yeah.
in this age where it's so easy to say, well, according to some guy in the dark garage, this
Yeah.
is facts. We don't need all this. These scientists are lying and all that. Someone tried
No,
that.
I believe
Someone
in
tried that with me early in
evidence-based
the pandemic, and I was
science.
like, you have 2 options: either you stop sending me these videos, or you go you go into the cooler. You choose one. But it was like, but this guy making sense. I said, if you're going to take advice from someone in the dark garage, he couldn't even put lighting on his face. Like, spend money and buy the light. Let's see your face in the dark garage, and say this coronavirus is a lie. They want you to be afraid and all that stuff. I'm like, oh, here we go. Please
Yeah.
don't send this to my inbox again. Do not do this. And he was like, but you need to listen. And I know I don't. I have that option not to listen to a lie, especially from someone dark. Why are you in the darkness? Like, what? Even if you're not in the darkness, I still wouldn't listen. But yeah, and But yeah, I consider myself a person of science. I don't think I ever passed. Oh, okay, in college I passed my science courses finally, but I struggled with science in high school. And looking back now, I think it was more of the teaching methods that made it difficult for me. And I never wanted to be a scientist. I never wanted. Well, I never thought I would be a doctor. So that was. I never liked officially working in a hospital. I never liked the smell anytime I walked into a hospital. But I think I could work in a hospital. Like right now, I can. But at one point in time, I used to be that person who'd be like, ugh. Then I use that as an excuse for not getting, going for checkups and all that. Plus adding the toxic man culture was the hardcore part of. And but now I identify with being a person of science because I believe in, even if I don't know the full explanation, I don't know how to defend it properly, I can point you in the direction of the people who this is their job and this is what they have to do. They know better. And I believe in the facts. So even when I was on a friend's podcast and she was like, I don't know about these vaccines. I don't want to take it because they've given some people HIV in the past with vaccines. I was like, why would they want to come give you HIV right now? What is the point of coming to inject and kill you when people do, like you're talking about, you want the economy open, you want to do your business properly, right? Yes, okay.
Yeah.
So why would they come and say we're going to inject all of you with debt? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. Let's just talk about that from that
Well,
point
that's
of
the
view.
problem with a lot of people who are anti-vaxxers, and
Yeah,
they predicate it on a racist history. Is that they don't even know their history, because nobody has ever injected anybody with HIV and said it
exactly.
was a vaccine. That's not a thing that's ever happened in this country. So that's they're just confused. They're
Uh,
just confused.
yeah. So I have to, yeah, every time I get a chance to talk about that, I always talk about that. But you are a person of science, and I always look up to you and anytime you talking about your job. And so you now focus on drug overdose
Hmm.
after working on STD previously. But last time we were together in person was in Minnesota, and it was the CDC that also took you over there.
Yeah. So
So
it was a CDC
that
fellowship.
was when you were in the fellowship.
Yes.
Oh, okay, okay. So you are willing to go to CDC over there and then move. So if someone like applies for the fellowship, it means they must be willing to travel.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Just putting that out there for those who might be thinking of that, of taking that as a career path. Yeah. So yeah, but I really love seeing you talk about your job and talk about what you do at the CDC, and I think the CDC is a better place with having people like you over there. But that's not the only thing that you do. You also do something that has been extra inspiring, which is you embraced another creative part of yourself and went into yoga. So how did that come about?
So I've always been interested in yoga. I just never thought I could be good at it, or I guess being raised by hypercritical African parents, you think you have to be good at everything, or
Yeah.
things take on a certain level of intensity when when it's not called for.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of what I did with my approach with the yoga. I was very I approached it like it was something to conquer instead of an experience or a practice to have. And
Mm.
so I had always been interested in it, but wasn't sure if I could be good at it, air quotes. But this past summer, during all of the social justice movements that were occurring, there were a lot of people who were trying to figure out, what can I do in this moment? And so there was a yoga practitioner and studio owner out of Austin, Texas, who wanted to use her sphere of influence. And she said, you know, I'm going to offer scholarships to Black people for Black wellness and to do yoga teacher training.
Yeah.
And so, since yoga was always something I'd been interested at, I kind of took it as an opportunity to just see, right? I was like, well, if I get this scholarship, it'll be free and I can learn and it'll deepen my practice. And so I did it and I really enjoyed it. And it just, really grounded me in a year that was kind of chaotic and
Hmm.
hectic. And so it really just became a part of my regular wellness practice, and part of my mental health practice. And so I got certified as a yoga teacher, and I teach weekly here in Georgia, and I do the occasional workshop or online thing. So if you are listening and you want a yoga or a meditation, or I offer a lot of different things, but if you want some sort of yoga, self-care, wellness type workshop, and I do them virtually, so you can hire me through that. Um, and yeah, it's been something I've really been enjoying, and letting people who look like me and who share the various identities I share as a Black woman, as an African woman, as a woman, a plus size woman, as someone with varying physical abilities, and let you know that this practice, like, you can access this practice if that's something you're interested in. And so yeah, I'm just really been into it. And then as a result, I started my small business, the Namaste Bae. And so I sell apparel and gifts and accessories for the yoga enthusiasts, yoga, self-care, and wellness enthusiasts. And so if you visit my website, the namastebaeshop.com, you will see a ton of cute things. I think you'll be really into what you see. And you're probably going to want to buy something for yourself. And I encourage you to do
Yeah,
that.
indeed, indeed,
But
indeed.
if you can't, I know it's hard times for everybody. And so I love people sharing my stuff. I love people following me on Instagram and Facebook. There's lots of ways you can support if you can't purchase a class or a product from me. But I love all the support from everywhere in the world.
And your videos are fun. It's not just like
Thank you.
just do a yoga stretch and you do this and that, but it's you make it fun to watch, and that's why even though I was like, oh, I'm going to do the stretch, and I just end up watching the video. I'm like, oh, this is so much fun. And oh, I forgot to do the stretch, but yeah. So sometimes I get your niece to watch with me, and she's like, oh, exercise, exercise, and I'm like, you gonna do it? And sometimes she's like, she's doing the poses. I'm like, okay, you do it, and then I will do the watching, and then so, but it's everybody will have a good time watching the videos, and yeah. So please make sure you follow the Namaste Bay. It's worth your time. It's worth your time, and they're not long videos, so I think that's another thing that makes it extra beautiful and exciting.
Oh,
Yeah. So
thank
I'm
you.
always proud of you. I'm always proud of you, cousin, because you inspire in so many ways, and it's just beautiful. You should see the way you shine your light and do your
Happy to
thing.
be of service.
So as we begin to wrap up, I can't thank you enough for sharing your time with me today, and coming on the platform. Um, what would you like to leave the audience with? One final thing, you know.
I would
It
like to
could.
leave the audience with that: no matter where you're from or no matter where you are, that wellness is accessible to you.
Mm,
I'm very much trying to share with people who share community with me that you can access self-care and wellness, and it doesn't have to be. I think a lot of times people think of self-care like, oh, I need to go pay for like a pedicure or pay for a massage, and
yeah,
I don't have the money, I don't have the time. But it's
that used to be
really
me.
setting your life up so that you are feeling taken care of. It's kind of like mothering and nurturing yourself.
Yeah.
And so I just want to encourage everyone, again, no matter where you're from or where you are, to please access some sort of, care for your mental wellness, for your physical wellness, for your spiritual wellness. We are living in very harsh times, and as marginalized people, it can really impact us in ways that we may not even know. And
Yeah.
so it is. as Audre Lorde says, self-care is an act of political warfare, because when you are strong and when you are taken care of, you can go out there and you can change the world. So
That's true.
take care of yourself.
That's true. So until I started showing myself self-care and self-love, that I started embracing my gifts and finding that confidence to be in front of the mic. So
Yeah.
that's an example, and even doing volunteering in my community. So,
Very proud of you.
yeah, thank you, and I'm proud of you too. So I agree with that all the time, and I look forward to our eventual hanging out again in Atlanta when next you come to New York. But we're long overdue, so you can come hang out with your niece and have a good time. And maybe we'll do jollof or banga soup. Who knows? So you've already mentioned your shop, but just for final sake, where can people find you officially?
Yes. So on Instagram, Facebook, and on Clubhouse, I am at the Namaste Bae. So TheNamasteBae. And if you are looking for my website, you can go to thenamastebaeshop.com.
All righty. And I'll have all that in the show notes, and make sure you all visit, get yourself something good, and hey, treat yourself right. Self-care, self-love. All righty. So Umbana for coming on the show, and Umbana to our listeners. And hey, keep the love coming in, sharing, and hey, we also got t-shirts for the podcast. They'll be in the show notes. You can get them also. And yeah, hook yourself up. And thank you all for the privilege of your company. Thanks for listening to White Label American. If you enjoyed the show, we'll appreciate if you rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcast from. If you have any questions, comments, or have someone who will be a good guest on the show, or you want to be on the show, send us a message at whitelabelamerican@gmail.com. And make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at White Label American. Thank you for your support.